sometimes it just happens like that, right?
Sometimes you're the windshield. Sometimes you're the bug. Or another one. This is actually one of my ones. The longtime college basketball coach Seth Greenberg. After he was coaching in South Florida, his team took a big loss, and he said, "Some days you're the dog, and some days you're the tree."
Yeah.
Tonight, we were the tree, but we'll be the dog someday.
Yeah. The
And
Broncos
that's
will
how you have
be,
to view it. Someday we'll
yeah.
be the dog.
Some days you're the hydrant, some days you're the dog. uh, it ruined my Saturday night. Mace, I hope you had a better Saturday night.
You know, it wasn't the result anybody wanted, obviously. But as you're experiencing it, you're seeing a very joyful crowd when you're in person, a very joyful Lions crowd that isn't used to success, that is lapping it up and marinating in it. And honestly, you're kind of happy for the fans experiencing that in Michigan, right? Like they've been down for so long that when you see their joy and even experience some good plays like the flip into the end zone there for a touchdown the Lions had. You hate that's against the Broncos, but that was a play that my daughter Charlotte was just raving about on Sunday when we were talking about the game. So
Mm. I would say forget the Lions. And what went wrong, Mace? Is it as simple as saying everything?
it is. There are some things that are worse than others. Some things we've been telling you about for quite a while. Run defense, right? Even when things were going well, it wasn't fixed. It came home to roost on Saturday night. But we also saw some things that had not been issues that are issues now and need to be dealt with. What did the Broncos do well? I'd say probably special teams, and that was it.
That's about it. Really had difficulty handling that speed. It
Mhm.
gave me Miami vibes, and we had talked about it. This might have been the best duo on the backfield, healthy backfield that
Mhm.
we'd seen since Devon Achan and Raheem Mostert got it done against this team. And Dave Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs were too much to handle for those linebackers in coverage. Here we go again, Mace.
Yeah, and they averaged 6.6 yards on the ground per carry. They were active in the passing game. It was pick your poison against not only those two running backs, but the collection of targets. We talked about Sam Laporta last week, the tight end, did we not? And he had 3 touchdowns and he was getting open. I mean, honestly, you looked at this game and we know the Patriots don't have a lot of talent coming in on Christmas Eve, right? But if you're Bill Belichick looking at this game, you probably got a lot of ideas
Yeah,
watching it.
yeah, you probably had a lot of ideas already, and those ideas were just backed up. And what does Hunter
Yeah.
Henry have? Like a couple of touchdowns in that last game? Like,
Yeah, I mean, by and large, the Patriots don't have the personnel to do a lot of the things uh, that the Lions did, especially offensively. But I think defensively, looking at some of the things that the Lions showed in terms of blitz looks, they in terms of the penetration they got on the Broncos, and in terms of and I'll actually watch how many times they double DJ Jones and get him pushed back, and then it's forcing everything onto everyone else in the front seven, particularly everyone else in the box, your other defensive linemen, inside linebackers, Alex Singleton and Josey Jewell. And then on top of that, the Broncos had a ton of missed tackles, more missed tackles in this game than any game since the Miami loss. Things that had not been issues, that they'd been masked. We talk about masking deficiencies.
right.
They All of those came unmasked in a big way on Saturday night against, I would say, the best team the Broncos have faced since Miami, better than
Right.
Kansas City. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Lions were the first team since the Dolphins to put a real butt kicking on the Broncos.
Yeah, and Mike McGlinchey talked about that. Sometimes you just get your butt whooped. You want to play that beautiful bean footage now or
Let's roll
later,
that
Mace?
bean footage from the locker room. Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, here we go.
Pressured us a lot. First and second down pressures were definitely higher than they've normally ever done. And if I was playing our team, that's probably how I would do it too, and try and stop the run and those kinds of things. Yeah, it was a tough night. They had a good plan for us. I thought, we battled hard. Unfortunately, yeah, it was just, in the NFL, sometimes you just get your ass kicked, and tonight was one of those nights.
Yeah.
It's one of those
The
nights.
Lions are a better team. Like I wrote in my piece at denversports.com after the game, I think this game showed that if the Broncos do get in the playoffs, and look, they're going to need some help beyond winning 3 games, and there are realistic scenarios where the Broncos win out and are not a playoff team. But if they do get in the playoffs, there is a certain type of matchup that appears to be a bridge too far for this team to win. It's a team that's got a bounty of offensive playmakers and a quarterback who can effectively put those playmakers in position to succeed and can make some plays on their own. So when you look at the AFC postseason, you say, okay, this team probably isn't going to have a chance against Miami. Probably isn't going to have much of a chance against Baltimore, right?
Right.
Anybody else, I think they can hold their own, although certainly CJ Stroud can present some problems, but the Broncos did diffuse him at times in Houston earlier this month. But by and large, yeah, I think based on what we expect in the playoffs is going to depend on the matchup. And if you're looking across and you're seeing Baltimore or Miami, it's probably going to be a quick exit. And it may well be a quick exit against Buffalo if things work out that way and Buffalo sneaks in and wins the AFC East and you play them. The way Buffalo has looked since the Bronco game, they're starting to take on that look of that kind of team as well that forces you to pick your poison. And I don't think you can count on, if you went back to Buffalo, you couldn't really count on the same takeaway touchsticks you had when you went there last month.
But nothing that was revealed in Detroit. It was disappointing, Mace, to be sure. Disappointing for sure. You don't get turnovers. You put the game more in Russ's hands and it fails. We got plenty to unpack there. But to me, and I don't want to turn this into a Jake Browning show, but now if you do have a T. Higgins, a Jamar Chase, a Joe Mixon, a Chase Brown, like now all of a sudden that team becomes interesting in the postseason. If the Broncos even make it, but Dallas Cowboys fans aren't losing their mind because they lose to Buffalo. Why does the same Broncos fans are losing their minds because they lose to Detroit? Detroit's a really good team, and they lost in a bad way. They got their ass kicked.
I'm not sure all of Cowboys Nation isn't losing their minds, Cease, because they're losing their minds over the fact that the Cowboys can't seem to win a big game on the road, and they're staring down the barrel having to go on the road in the postseason because, in all likelihood, Philadelphia is going to win the NFC East after the game yesterday.
Why does it seem like more Broncos fans are jumping ship then?
I don't know. The last 6 years, 6 losing seasons have done a number on the fan base. 6 losing seasons, 7 non-playoff seasons. Look, we talked about last week in Detroit. You went on social media, you went on Reddit or whatever, and you saw you saw the discomfort Lions fans had and the concern and the worry, right? Which is why I said, hey, if you can get off to a good start and sow those seeds, maybe you turn home field advantage into a home field disadvantage. We saw Green Bay do that to the Lions on Thanksgiving Day. And there was a window for the Broncos to do that because their first offensive play, you got the Keanu Reeves chef's kiss or the kiss gift.
Yeah, the Keanu kiss. Yeah,
Keanu
beautiful.
kiss. Thank you. You got that?
Slant God.
That first play was everything we've been talking about. Okay. We talked about the notion of Jerry Jeudy as the slant God, lining up inside, running a slant route. We've talked about how you have to use Jaleel McLaughlin as a decoy sometimes. And so you come out, Jaleel starts, you play fake to him, you draw coverage a little bit up to account for that, and Jerry Judy's got an open horizon there from the slant, and he takes off. I that was the thing, like that first play, the first sequence by the defense getting off the field, and then the first play for the Broncos. About 3 minutes into the game, I'm thinking, okay, let's go. There's something cooking here, right?
Right.
And then reality came and knocked the Broncos around, and without so much as a mere touch, left them in little pieces.
Yeah, and the problems of the inside linebackers. Sorry, Alex Singleton has better hair than I do. He leads the team in tackles. He also leads the league in missed tackles. Exposed.
Yeah.
Jewell, who's had struggles in coverage, although Josey did get better last year in coverage. Exposed, and that speed and the way they were able to spread you out. Okay, these are things we knew, but without turnovers, Mace, it seemed like turtle on your back time.
Yeah, and you look back on the Kansas City game, and I thought the Broncos had two good game plans when they went to Arrowhead and when they played in Denver.
Let's talk about the game plan.
Wait, what was the difference in those games? Takeaways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Broncos were far better in the takeaway game at home than they were at Arrowhead. They win one game 24-9, they lose the other game 19-8, right? The difference was the turnover margin. That's what separated those two games. So when you're talking about going against playoff caliber teams, it doesn't work without takeaways, because that's how you beat Kansas City. That's how you beat Buffalo. And you still needed an assist from the Bills at the end with having too many players on the field when Will Lutz missed the potential game-winning field goal, right? So you still need a little bit of help there. You needed takeaways to beat the Vikings, who are in playoff position. You needed takeaways to beat the Browns, who they're in playoff position. But by the way, that Browns team that you saw in Denver wasn't the same one that even we saw yesterday that did manage to overcome the Bears after struggling, because you're talking about Joe Flacco being at quarterback now versus Darian Thompson-Robinson and P.J. Walker being at quarterback when the Browns came in. I mean, the Broncos are still in it. The situation is what it is. They're going to need some help, but you could argue the Broncos are fortunate to be in it.
Right.
And that's not something I think anyone wants to hear, but they're on a pretty thin line. They've walked an edge very adroitly in winning games against Buffalo and Minnesota in particular, games that could have easily gone in the other direction. And right now, that's what's keeping them afloat and alive. And the other thing that's keeping them alive with those wins is those are tiebreaker advantages they have. The problem is, after the results of the weekend, Indianapolis winning, Houston coming back against Tennessee, those results really hurt because of where the Broncos stand in the tiebreaker realm. Right now, what you're kind of hoping for is you're hoping that Jacksonville keeps losing, falls out of or falls back to 9-8. If they lose, if they
there's a three-way tie at the top of that division, and Trevor Lawrence is in concussion protocol.
Well, they're not, they don't determine the playoff spot by who's in concussion protocol. This isn't college football, fortunately. But here's the thing: the problem is the tiebreakers kill you against Houston, Indianapolis, right? Did I lose you?
At least it's a little choppy today, and man alive, did that hurt. Saturday night, did that hurt. That just flat out sucked for Broncos fans everywhere. It looks like we got Mace back.
Hi,
How's it going? We do a live show, so this is what happens sometimes.
Yeah, the magic of live broadcasting. Can be
Yeah,
capricious.
exactly. Either way, I want to talk about the game
I was on
plan
a
with
good
you.
tangent there. I thought that was the thing. I was a little
It
disappointed.
was a
kind of
good
lose out.
tangent. I want to talk about the game plan with you, Mace, because you're
Yeah.
the only one I can talk about this with. Like,
Okay.
I enjoyed the second half, whether it's scripted before the pea and the banana or whatever. Like second half, okay, there was a little something. I got a little excited. That
Mhm.
fell apart. But coming out, doing what you did with Jeudy, and then not going back to that, and then having these long developing plays for Russ. We got the chat room going off on the offensive line. I'm not going to give him any excuses, but damn it, you got to get that ball out of his hands. And they're setting up these long developing plays. When he hit the fifth step, I had a buddy of mine. I was at a public appearance at Twin Peaks, and he was standing there with me watching the game. He's like, throw it. And I was like, when he hits his back foot and he's already getting hit like that. I mean, if Russ was hanging on the ball too long, I'd tell you. And at times he does do that, perhaps too much. But in that game, it seemed like these long developing plays that they had called up, it just wasn't the right plan. Draw plays, screen passes. People say, oh, he's terrible at throwing screens. I say, there's multiple types of screens. Wide receiver screen, tight end screen, running back screen, wheel routes, flats, draw plays, Texas routes, all the stuff that would have worked that's shorter, they didn't use.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say that when you're talking about people who had a bad game on Saturday night, I think that includes Sean Payton.
Yes.
In terms of offensive game planning. Even though, yeah, I love the opening play. I mean, so we can say like the opening script
Very good.
was pretty good. I mean, yeah, and it ended in the fumble when you had an unblocked safety coming in on Russell Wilson. Now, I'll say this on Russ. That is where the instinct to keep things alive hurts him a bit. And as that's happening in my mind, I'm thinking back, okay, it's time for the self sack. The old Peyton Manning self sack. The one thing about Peyton Manning is he knew when he was beat, right? He knew when to say, I'm going to take my lumps on this play. Let's go on to the next snap. Because if you turtle and take a sack, it hurt. Okay, it hurts you in field position. That's fine, but unless it's fourth down, let's to fight another play. Right?
You're not getting hit and getting a fumble.
Yeah, you see that happening, and he's on, and the man is unblocked, and you just think because you're thinking about the pain he's going to take because he's about to absorb a blow, not just the ball coming out. You see that happening, and you think, oh bleep. That was what went through my mind when I saw that developing. Well, I was like, oh, bleep, here we go.
Yeah, I almost texted you, dude, to be like, tell me if Stidham's warming up. Like some of the hits Russ took, I was like, Mace, tell me if Stidham's warming up because it's and he'll just keep doing it. He's such a glutton for punishment. He'll be, let's do it again, coach. And it's like, man, alive. There's not even the Roethlisberger, like, man, that really hurt kind of walk to the line. You know what I mean? Like, Russ is tough. He's not good. The coach is covering for him. And you have to set him up to be special in moments. But, man, it was tough out there.
And unfortunately, this is part of the discussion that you have regarding the contract and the fifth day of the league year and the 2025 salary being guaranteed if he's on the roster the fifth day of the league year. Because he's 35 years old and he's taking these hits. And he's taken a lot of hits in his career. I mean, that was something that came up throughout his Seattle time was the accumulation of hits. At what point was it going to cause an impact, right? I mean, now, unfortunately, because, we know all about the dangers of the sport, it is something about which I think it's fair to have long-term concern for any player, as we know, right? But in terms of the financials here, involved with saying, okay, how is Russell Wilson going to look next year when he turns 36, the year after when he turns 37? And he's taking those hits. It's not something that you normally rebound from over time with the accumulation of hits. And whether it's fair or not, and this, hey, if you're thinking from the heart, it's a hard discussion to have. But it's something that you have when you're thinking from the mind. You have to take into consideration when you're examining all the factors to determine whether you bring Russell Wilson back for 2024 or not, or whether you take that dead money cap hit, or do you double down? That's that's going to be part of the discussion.
What did you make of Sean Payton yelling at Russell Wilson?
First of all, I don't think it was the biggest deal about the game. I think with Russell Wilson, like I said, the accumulation of hits, the rush that he's under, that's a concern for the team as a whole. Getting gashed on the ground, we talked about that earlier. That's a concern. Losing at the line of scrimmage on the offensive side, that's a concern. Here's the thing: Sean Payton is a very emotional coach, a very emotional person as things are developing in the game. And you think about that sequence, you had Jaleel McLaughlin stopped at the goal line, although I think he was over. I personally think the Broncos should have challenged that one. They didn't. Mm-hmm. Javonte Williams stopped on third down. Fourth down, you think, the touchdown, but then there's an unusual offensive offside call. According to NFL penalties, the first offensive offside against the Broncos in 11 years. Okay. That doesn't happen very often, right? I know they're watching offsides more because of the tush-push play, but it's still something that's unusual, and I think based on what we saw, it was a debatable call. So you have all of this accumulating on Sean Payton, who does run hot in games, and Russell Wilson happens to be there. I think it was a lot of the frustration, including probably some frustration with Russell Wilson and the way the game was going. I think a lot of it was hitting right then and there, and Russ is kind of he's the flashpoint, right? Look, we've seen Sean yell at Russell Wilson before back in Week 5 against the Jets. We've seen Sean Payton yell at Vance Joseph. We've seen him kind of have an animated discussion with PJ Locke, right? Remember the Browns game, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He runs hot during these games. I honestly think a bigger deal is being made of it than should be made.
Yeah, and certainly I come from a family of yellers. When you're Latin, that's what you're going to do, Mace. But I always was taught to listen to the message, right? I'm going to yell at you. I'm going to yell because the emotion of the moment, and I'm not like making excuses for what could be construed as verbal abuse or crossing that line. But like, you learn to listen to the message. Like, I'm going to take a chewing, and this comes in sports too. My coach yelled at me all the time, right? Usually about not remembering the plays, and I was the quarterback. So I just go in the huddle and call whatever I wanted. Yeah, that didn't go over real well, Mace. But anyway, like, listen to the message, take the chewing, and Russ is going to take the chewing. Mm-hmm. And I saw Davis Webb next to him. It's like he kind of opened up body language wise to let Sean get that message through that his quarterback will listen to. So listen to the message. It's yelling. Sean Payton yells. Okay. Yeah. Nothing new here, people.
He gets it off his chest. I mean,
Bill Parcells.
Mike Shanahan yelled,
Mike Shanahan yelled at you. I have to know that story, even if it's off air. I have to know the story.
Mike would yell at me, and then next time you saw him, hey, what's up? Like it doesn't happen. Like it never happened. And Sean Payton's kind of the same way too. Like he'll like it never happened. Like hey, good to see you. He gets it off and he moves on, right?
Mm-hmm.
The short memory of a good corner, as they'd say. Corner's got to forget about it. He's, I'd say a good thing for handling Sean Payton in terms of when he gets emotional like that. Just don't take it personal.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't take it personal.
Nope, it's not personal. It's just business.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's
and
the
in a
business
more
of
rational
football.
moment, in a quieter moment, you're going to get a more rational.
Sure.
A far more rational.
And all he wants to do is win, just like you.
Yeah.
You're Russell Wilson. You want to win. Sean Payton wants to win. And this happens in families. This happens in football. Like, it's just, I'm sorry, the world's not perfect and rainbows and lollipops. You're going to get your ass chewed sometimes. And you're going to get your ass kicked sometimes.
Somewhere in one of my boxes on one of my bookshelves somewhere, I have a collection of essays that was published for the NFL 75th anniversary. And the book is titled A Game of Passion. It is. Okay. There's a lot of passion involved. And sometimes it boils over. The thing is, we see that captured on camera, and the whole country reacts to it. I mean, I got a bunch of text messages like, whoa, Sean's angry, with Russ. Like, it's... And, Sean was asked about it. He said, none of your business, none of your business, right? I mean,
Yeah, what I say to Russell Wilson is none of your business.
mhm.
Was that poor Chris? Poor Chris and Troy are getting.
No. That
Was
was
it Chris?
actually a reporter from the follow-up question was asked by a reporter from Detroit. Who was
Oh,
in there.
okay. Well, it is none of their business. Detroit media, get out of here.
Yeah. Everyone saw it. Everyone was
Yeah.
talking about it.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Final point today, Mason, unless you've got stuff, because we're some chatty blankety blankers. Should Samaje Perine be the starter? I wrote about it in Mile High Monday today, denversports.com. We love Javonte. We give Javonte a bunch of credit. Samaje is just more effective. And it's not even really this game where Javonte was 2-3 a carry and Samaje was 2-6-2 a carry or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just kind of where it needed to be. And a couple of weeks ago, you and I both said, hey, who could be the starter at the end of the season? It might be Samaje. In your eyes, and I think of that third down play specifically, Mace, should it be Samaje?
Well, I'm just going to run 7 numbers by you, okay?
Okay. I like this.
3.1, 3.8, 3.4, 3.6, 3.5, 3.9, 2.3. Pretty sure you can figure out those are his averages per carry in the last 7 games.
It's almost 2 months.
It's a great story. He won the Broncos Ed Block Courage Award winner for his comeback from multiple torn knee ligaments last year. This isn't a discussion of value in terms of value, morale, all that. It's strictly about performance. And right now, the performance isn't good enough, especially for a team that wants to run the football, needs to run the football to succeed. And right now, it's sad to watch because we know how explosive he was and how dynamic he was before the injury. And maybe he can get that back next year because a lot of times with injuries like that, it takes another year beyond to get that back. But right now, I think you've probably got to put Samaje Perine out there more. And even though he struggles in pass protection, you got to give Jewell McLaughlin some more snaps.
Right.
More snaps where he's not the target. He actually, I believe it was, he played 8 snaps and 5 times was either targeted or received the handoff. So you're getting the percentage down a little bit. So you're getting better there. Probably need to continue working on that as well, because when you do have the element of surprise on Jewell McLaughlin, whether it's as a decoy or getting it to him in space, he showed he can be effective. I mean, he should have I think that was a touchdown that he had.
Yes, I do too.
At the goal line. Okay. But I think it's probably time to think about it, just a redisbursement of the touches at running back right now, and then with Javonte, you start thinking next year, but you also maybe start thinking of running back as a low-key need going into the offseason. Don't be surprised if you see a mid-round running back on the Broncos draft list.
I'd be here for it. Don't be surprised if we see him at the Shrine Bowl or the Senior Bowl in January.
We're going to have plenty to talk about when we go down to those games, my friend. Plenty to talk about. We came up in our meeting today.
Yeah. Y'all better be ready. Y'all better be ready.
A lot of running back talk, a lot of offensive tackle talk, a lot of wide receiver talk, a lot of D-line talk, linebacker talk.
You can say it.
Might be some quarterback talk.
Might be some quarterback talk as well.
Yeah, might be. That's how it goes.
Yep. Wes brings up the culture shift. I know, and I won't tell the audience who, but we appreciate anybody around that organization that watches this show, because we know about the culture shift. Like, it is different. Like it feels, and that's why I said earlier, Mace, if they don't make the playoffs, I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to lose my mind. I'm not going to blow my top. Am I going to be disappointed because of the turnaround? Yeah. There was a chance. There was a window. You can still make it, but now you need help. But that culture shift is palpable. We can tell it when we go out there. Like, things feel different around that team.
If you go 10-7 and you fall just short of the playoffs, it doesn't mean this was an unsuccessful season. It just means you lost some tiebreakers, and you look back and you'll look back at those early games and say, "Oh, if only." How often did we hear from both Sean Payton and Mike McGlinchey? It's a race to get better at the start of the season, and unfortunately, the Broncos were a little bit slow in that race to get better at the start, and they took some losses that are really hurting them now. The Raiders loss, the Jets loss, the Washington loss. Just one of those would have been enough. Just one.
Yep.
But this is where the Broncos are.
That's the razor thin line in the National Football League. Mace, anything else today? We wrapping up today's show. A little disappointing over the weekend.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, but I guess I'm surprised at the magnitude. I thought the Broncos might lose this game. I did not think I was going to be looking up at the scoreboard and seeing 35-10 early in the fourth quarter, and the Lions have scored on 5 straight possessions. Yeah. We'll dive more into we focus a little bit more on the offense. I think we can dive into the defense tomorrow.
Yeah, let's do that.
I know
Show
we
notes
touched on that, but it's look, Vance Joseph warned us, right? We had that clip Friday on the show. Talked about the team speed of the Detroit Lions. It's the most they'd seen since Miami. I mean, you could not only the words, but you could hear the tone in his voice. Like, he knew this was going to be a huge ask of his defense. Like, he knows what he has, and he knows what he doesn't have right now either. Right, it got exposed on Saturday night.
Well, we're here for it. Let's go Broncos, and let's keep the faith and get to double-digit wins. I mean, there's a lot of good things still to look forward to, whatever happens with the postseason. And then whatever happens after that, we will be here for you. We will be covering it for you, denversports.com. And, of course, helping grow our YouTube channel. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. And we appreciate you. About half of our viewers are not subscribers. What are you waiting for, Mace? It's free. Just subscribe. Click the little thing right there. Down there, whatever.
For me, subscribe. Yeah. So you never miss it. So you know when we go on. And we got some exciting things going on potentially for next year as well. As you'd say, a little lagniappe coming up. So.
Oh yeah. Looking forward to that. Let's flip and go Broncos. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I am at Cecil Lammey saying thanks for watching. Stay tuned. And as always, would you please stay frosty,